What's up, everybody? I'm back with another tutorial. This is a Growl synth that I have for you, and I figured I would post this up due to the fact that my last tutorial on a Growl, which was something of that close to Kill the Noise, had some success, and this is another one for you. There's a lot of routing going on with the performer and some pitch macros and envelopes and things, so just kind of bear with me on explaining it all and we'll get through it. Something that I've found more useful lately, and you'll also notice if you've been watching my previous tutorials, my more recent ones, that I've added a macro on the pitch of my oscillators and to kind of help give me a little more control over my pitch bending rather than having to go into the piano roll and pitch bend. That way I can just do everything that I want inside of the MIDI automation there. So for myself, I found that more useful, but if none of you guys have actually tried that out, give it a shot, see how it helps you out, and you're welcome in advance. Anyway, I'll give you a preview of the synth and we'll get on to it. So it's kind of cool. You can kind of tell when I widen that out that it sort of gives it a phasing effect, and it definitely widens it out. As compared to when I don't, it sort of sounds monotone. So I'll teach you how to do that. Let's get on with it. We're using all four oscillators here. Oscillator 1, I have it set to crude. Spectrum, pitch it down 2 octaves. Wavetable is at 2 o'clock. Intensity is at 2 o'clock. And amp is all the way up. Set that to filter 1. Oscillator 2, square saw 2. Leave it on spectrum. Wavetable position is at 12 o'clock. Intensity is at 330. And amp is all the way up. Set that to filter 1 also. Pitch it down 2 octaves. Oscillator 3 is set to sonic. Bend minus plus. Pitch it down 2 octaves. Wavetable is about 130. Intensity is all the way to the left and amp is all the way to the right. Set that to filter 1. Modulation oscillator, pitch it down 2 octaves. And we have our ring mod set to oscillator 3, and that's set to 100%. Phase is on oscillator 1 and set that to 10 o'clock. Position is set to 3, oscillator 3, and that's at 100%. And our FM filter is set to oscillator 1, and that's also at 100%. We're using a little bit of feedback, so turn that on. Make sure it's at 0%, and it is set in between filters 1 and 2. Our insert 1 is set to sine shaper. Dry wet is at 0%, and our drive is at 1 o'clock. Insert 2 is parabolic shaper, and our dry wet is at 0%, and our drive is at 100%. For our filters, filter 1 is set to double notch. Our cutoff is at about 9:30. Our resonance is about 10 o'clock, and our volume is all the way up. Our mix is left in the middle, and set this to series. I think by default maybe it's on parallel, I'm not sure, but set it to series. And filter 2 is on band reject. Cutoff is about 8 o'clock. Bandwidth is about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Our resonance is almost at 1 o'clock. Volume is at 100%. Our effects 1, we have it on Bronner tube. Dry wet is set to 10 o'clock. Our drive is at 100%. Effects 2 is on dimension expander. And our dry wet is set to 10 o'clock, and our size is about 1230. Our EQ, we have our low shelf boosted just a tad. Our boost is at about 11 o'clock. Frequency is about 11 o'clock, and our high shelf is about 1 o'clock. Let's see. On our oscillator tab, I have the time set to 12 o'clock, and I think by default you've got a macro that's on your vibrato, so if you want to just to clear that macro, click and hold, or right click, whatever you have to do, and select clear macro number 1, and that'll clear every position that that's on. We won't be worrying about that. Voicing, our unison is set to 8, mono rotate, and our trigger is set to legato triller. Our spread, or for our pitch cutoff, set the pitch to 0.07. Make sure the slider is all the way to the left. Pan positioning, make sure it's set to mono. And what you want to do is throw a macro on each one of these. And for this, you want to drag it up till it's about 60% between the halfway point there, so 40% or so. And also on the pan position, you want to drag it all the way down. And what that'll do is that'll widen out your synth once you activate it. I believe I also have, let me see if that's set on anything else. Nope, that's it. That's all you got to worry about with that macro. Onto our performer. I have our ratio set to quarter notes, so 1/4. If you can't see that box, make sure you have sync selected. Our amp is all the way up, and our amp mod is all the way down, and our crossfade sequencer is set all the way up, which would be this set up here. If you set it in the middle, you'll have it, the lower section will also activate in the performer, so whatever you have down here will also make a difference in what it sounds like. In this case, we don't need that. Have it set all the way up here. To change your modulation within the performer, you have to select load curve. If you see this screen, just select a load curve, and you have all kinds of other options that you've got to choose from here. You don't have to do it exactly how I did it, but in this case, I just did my own little thing. So just pause it and figure out which shapes are which shapes here are from over here. I'm not going to go through and tell you that. That's just it's unnecessary if you ask me. This is just whatever you want it to sound like. That's what it's going to do. That's what's going to modulate the knobs over here. But you can pause it and do whatever you want. Copy it down. I'll give you a second. And I believe that's it as far as that performer goes. If you want, you can even select some of the factory presets that come with Massive. I've never really found these useful, so I don't really explore in this area that much. But it is an option. So with the routing, what we want to do is take your performer and drag it on the wavetable position and intensity of oscillator 1 and drag it all the way up. Drag it on the wavetable position for oscillator 2, drag that all the way up, and on intensity you want to drag it down until it's about 930. And for oscillator 3 on wavetable, drag it all the way up, and on intensity you want to put it about 10 o'clock. Set it on the feedback and set that to about 10 o'clock, 10:30. Also on the dry wet of each insert, and drag it all the way up on both. And now to the cutoff of double notch, our filter 1 preset, you want to drag it down. Also on cutoff of our filter 2 band reject, you want to drag it up to about 10 o'clock. and on bandwidth, set that to about 1 o'clock, 12:30. And for our EQ, for the low shelf, drag that to about 3:30, and also to about 1 o'clock on the boost. And I also have it set to the source on the amp here. I'll activate. I'll leave it activated and play it again, and then show you the difference that it makes when it's not set to that. I'm going to deactivate that here and show you the difference and explain why I have it set there. So if you can't hear already why I have it set there, the reason is there's a lot of synth going through that's not modulated. So it's just as if I don't have that set there. It's and that there's no modulation going on. So it would be just the raw synth playing over top of the modulation here. So it sounds real muddy. If I didn't explain that well, just ask, and I'll give you a better description of what I'm trying to do. So basically what that does is it cuts that out, and anytime that this modulates, it's just the synth being modulated, and it cuts out the sound of the synth that isn't modulated. If that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll explain it better if you need me to, but that's why. Anything else? Yeah, our amp envelope for our pitch here. You can select one of the three here. Our decay is, I'm pretty sure all these it's just default. It's just the default settings. So what you want to do is drag it to the pitch of all the oscillators, drag it up 2 octaves, and take a macro if you want. This is what I was explaining in the beginning of the video. Take a macro and throw it on the source of each oscillator and pitch that up 1 octave. That gives you control over the pitch bending and such. If you change the level of your envelope here, that's going to change the pitch of the synth, and I'll give you an example of that. So as you can hear, that definitely manipulates the pitch. So for my sake, I have it set to 12 o'clock on the level, and up 2 octaves on each oscillator. You could do whatever you want. I just found that that sounds really good with this. Also, I believe I missed the performer setting here. Throw the performer on the phase of the modulation oscillator for oscillator 1 and drag it all the way up. That's the only thing that's I believe I forgot. Other than that, I believe that's it. I'll give you guys the synth for download in the description, and if you haven't liked my Facebook channel, please go do that. Like I said before, I post a lot of stuff on there that I don't really plan on putting on YouTube. Just your random videos of things that I do within Logic, Massive Silent, whatever I'm using. Just kind of throw some things at you guys and interact with you a little more on a personal level. So just hit me up on there, and if you haven't subscribed, do that. And thanks for watching, guys.